Golden sunlight bathed one of the most magnificent private estates in all of Seoul. The enormous mansion stood proudly on a hill overlooking the Han River, surrounded by perfectly trimmed gardens, sparkling fountains, and towering cherry blossom trees swaying gently in the breeze. Italian marble reflected the warm daylight pouring through floor-to-ceiling glass windows, while a long driveway lined with luxury cars stretched toward the grand entrance. Uniformed security guards stood at every gate, and dozens of staff quietly carried out their duties. To anyone passing by, it looked less like a home and more like the palace of a king. But behind all that unimaginable wealth lived a man whose heart had been empty for 2 years. His name was Kang Min-jae. At just 32 years old, he had built one of South Korea's largest technology empires. His companies operated across continents. Newspapers called him a genius. Investors admired him. Competitors feared him. Employees respected him. Yet every achievement felt meaningless whenever he returned to that enormous mansion. Money had given him everything, except peace. He stood quietly beside the wide glass window of his bedroom, staring at the beautiful city stretching beneath the clear blue sky. "I have everything," he whispered softly. "So why does this house still feel so empty?" His voice disappeared into the silence. He slowly walked toward a wooden cabinet. Inside lay something far more valuable than all the billions he owned. An old photograph. He carefully picked it up. A bright smile appeared on his face, followed almost immediately by sadness. The photograph showed him standing beside a beautiful black woman with warm brown eyes and a joyful smile. They were laughing together beneath blooming cherry blossoms, completely unaware of the camera capturing one of the happiest days of their lives. Her name was Amara, the only woman he had ever truly loved. He gently brushed away an invisible speck of dust from the frame. "I tried to forget you," he said quietly. "I really tried, but every morning, I remember you all over again." He closed his eyes. "If only I could go back. If only I could change everything." A knock interrupted his thoughts. Chairman Kang, his secretary, Lee Hyun, stood respectfully outside the room. "The board members have already arrived." Min-jae slowly placed the photograph back into the cabinet. His expression immediately returned to its usual calm appearance. "I'm coming." Within seconds, the lonely man disappeared, and the powerful billionaire returned. Location: Kang Global Headquarters, Seoul. The towering headquarters of Kang Global reflected the brilliant daylight across downtown Seoul. Employees immediately bowed as Chairman Kang entered the building. "Good morning, Chairman." "Good morning, sir." "Welcome, Chairman Kang." He politely nodded at everyone before stepping into his private elevator. Inside, Secretary Lee Hyun began reviewing the day's schedule. "You have several important meetings today, Chairman." Min-jae simply nodded. His mind wasn't listening. Not really. While executives discussed billion-dollar investments, his thoughts drifted somewhere else. Toward a smile. Toward a voice. Toward memories he had spent 2 years trying to bury. Lee Hyun noticed immediately. "Chairman, you seem distracted." Min-jae gave a faint smile. "Do I? You've been looking out the window for almost 10 minutes. Min-jae looked toward the bright city skyline. Some memories refused to disappear. Lee Hyun understood exactly who he meant. Neither of them spoke another word. The meetings continued one after another. Executives applauded successful contracts. Partners celebrated new investments. Everyone congratulated Chairman Kang on another remarkable business victory. But every round of applause reminded him of something. Success was loud. Loneliness was silent. The black luxury sedan glided smoothly through the busy streets under the bright afternoon sun. People crossed sidewalks carrying shopping bags. Children laughed outside cafes. Street musicians filled the air with cheerful melodies. Min-jae sat quietly in the back seat reviewing documents. Suddenly, a little boy's laughter drifted through the slightly open window. It was innocent, joyful, carefree. Without thinking, Min-jae looked outside. Then, everything stopped. His heart skipped a beat. His breathing became uneven. The documents slipped from his hands. "No," he whispered. "It can't be." Walking along the opposite sidewalk, holding the tiny hand of a little boy, was Amara. She wore a simple cream-colored dress beneath a light-colored jacket, her long black hair moving gently in the breeze. She looked more mature, more confident, but she was still unmistakably Amara, the woman he had never stopped loving. His eyes refused to blink. His hands began trembling. "Driver!" His voice barely came out. "Stop the car!" The luxury sedan came to an immediate halt. Min Jae stared through the window. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Amara smiled warmly at the little boy beside her. The child looked up at her with sparkling eyes. Mommy. That single word struck Min Jae like lightning. His entire body froze. The little boy smiled brightly. Can we get ice cream later? Amara laughed gently. If you finish your dinner. I promise. Min Jae felt a sharp pain deep inside his chest. His breathing became heavier. Mommy. The word echoed repeatedly inside his mind. His eyes slowly shifted toward the little boy's face. Then he noticed something. The child's eyes, his eyebrows, even the way he smiled, looked strangely familiar. His heart pounded violently. No, this isn't possible. Without another thought, he pushed open the car door and rushed across the street. Chairman, Lee Hyun called after him. But Min Jae couldn't hear anything. There was only one person in front of him. Only one question filling his mind. Who was that little boy? He finally reached the opposite sidewalk. He looked around desperately. Left, right, behind every passing pedestrian. But Amara, and the little boy, had disappeared into the crowd. He stood there in complete disbelief. His breathing was uneven. His heart refused to calm down. After searching for 2 years, fate had finally allowed him to see the woman he loved again. But before he could even speak her name, she had vanished once more. He clenched his fists tightly. No, he whispered. This time, I won't lose you again. Kang Min Jae remained standing on the crowded sidewalk long after Amara and the little boy disappeared. Golden afternoon sunlight reflected from the glass buildings surrounding him, yet he barely noticed. His eyes searched desperately through every passing face. Businessmen hurried toward offices. Tourists stopped to take photographs. Street vendors called out to customers. Children laughed as they chased one another across the plaza. Life continued as though nothing extraordinary had happened. But for Kang Min Jae, everything had changed. His breathing was uneven. His hands trembled slightly. For 2 long years, he had searched for Amara without finding a single clue. Then, in less than a minute, fate had allowed him to see her again, only to take her away before he could even call her name. Secretary Lee Hyun finally reached him. Chairman, you almost ran into traffic. Min Jae didn't answer immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the crowd. It was her. His voice was barely audible. Lee Hyun looked around. Miss Amara? Min Jae nodded slowly. Yes. And there was a little boy. Silence followed. Lee Hyun had worked beside Chairman Kang for years. He had seen him negotiate billion-dollar contracts without showing emotion. He had seen him face hostile investors without hesitation. But today, his chairman looked like a man who had lost everything. The child called her mommy. Min Jae whispered. Lee Hyun lowered his eyes. I heard. Min Jae finally turned toward him. There was something about him. The way he smiled. The way he looked at her. I can't explain it. Lee Hyun listened carefully. He looked so much like me. The secretary remained silent. He didn't want to encourage hope without evidence, but he couldn't ignore what he had noticed either. Even from a distance, the resemblance had been difficult to miss. Inside the black luxury SUV, silence filled the cabin. The city moved past the windows beneath the bright afternoon sky. Min Jae stared outside without seeing any of it. Again and again, he replayed those few unforgettable moments. Amara's gentle smile, the little boy's cheerful laughter, the single word that continued echoing inside his heart. Mommy. He suddenly leaned forward. Lee Hyun. Yes, Chairman. I want you to find her. I'll begin immediately. I don't care how much it costs. I don't care how many people you need. I need answers. Lee Hyun nodded. I understand. Min Jae closed his eyes. He paused. If that child is my son, his voice cracked. I've already missed 2 years. The SUV pulled into Kang Global Headquarters. Employees immediately greeted Chairman Kang with respectful bows. Good afternoon, Chairman. He walked straight past them, without responding. Several executives waiting in the lobby exchanged surprised glances. One quietly whispered, I've never seen Chairman Kang ignore anyone. Another executive answered softly, something must have happened. Inside his private office, Min Jae stood before the massive glass window overlooking Seoul. He remembered another afternoon. 2 years earlier, Amara had stood in this very office. She had smiled as she looked across the skyline. You work too much. She had laughed. One day this office will become your second home. He had smiled confidently. Only until I finish building the company. She had wrapped her arms around him. Promise me something. What? When you become the richest man in Korea, don't become the loneliest. The memory disappeared. Min-jae slowly closed his eyes. I broke that promise. Later that afternoon, Lee Hyun entered quietly, carrying a notebook. I've already started. Min-jae immediately looked up. What did you find? Not much, but someone remembered seeing Miss Amara leave Seoul shortly after your separation. Where did she go? They're not sure. Min-jae sighed heavily. Keep searching. I will, no matter how long it takes. Meanwhile, several kilometers away, Amara unlocked the door to her modest apartment. Warm sunlight filled the small living room. Unlike Kang Estate, there were no marble floors, no expensive artwork, no luxury furniture, only simple wooden shelves, family photographs, children's drawings, fresh flowers on the dining table. Every corner reflected love rather than wealth. Ethan happily ran inside. Mommy, I'm starving, Amara laughed. I thought you might be. So wash your hands. I'll make lunch. Okay. The little boy raced happily toward the bathroom. Amara watched him disappear down the hallway. Only then did her smile slowly fade. She gently closed the apartment door. Resting her back against it, she released a slow breath. So, you finally saw me. A tear rolled gently down her cheek. I knew this day would come. She quietly wiped away the tear before Ethan returned. No matter how much pain she carried, she refused to let him see it. Lunch was simple. Rice, soup, grilled fish, fresh vegetables. Ethan smiled happily. This is my favorite. Amara smiled. I know. After a few bites, the little boy looked at her curiously. Mommy? Yes? Why were you crying outside? Amara froze. She hadn't realized he had noticed. She forced a gentle smile. I wasn't crying. You looked sad. She reached across the table and held his tiny hand. Sometimes adults remember old memories. Bad memories? She thought carefully. No, just painful ones. Ethan nodded thoughtfully, then smiled. I'll make new happy memories with you. Amara couldn't stop another tear from forming. You already do. Every single day. That same afternoon, Min-jae remained inside his office. Stacks of important contracts covered his desk. Investment reports waited for approval. International executives requested urgent meetings. Normally, he would have completed everything before sunset. Today, he couldn't even read one page. Every document became blurred by the same question. Who was that little boy? Finally, he pressed the intercom. Lee Hyun. The secretary entered immediately. Cancel tomorrow morning. The meetings? All of them. Lee Hyun looked surprised. You have investors arriving from overseas. They can wait. I have something more important. What would you like me to arrange? I want every private investigator our company has ever worked with. Lee Hyun nodded. I'll contact them immediately. And tell them one thing. What is it, Chairman? I don't want rumors. I don't want the media involved. I simply want to find Amara. Quietly. Understood. That evening, as daylight slowly softened across Seoul, Amara stood beside the apartment window, watching Ethan-colored dinosaurs at the dining table. His laughter filled the small apartment. She smiled warmly. You've grown so fast. Ethan looked up. What did you say? I said, I'm proud of you. The little boy grinned. I'm going to become very strong, so I can protect you. Amara walked over and kissed his forehead. You already protect me. Really? Every single day. Back at Kang Estate, Min-jae returned to the enormous mansion. The silence greeted him once again. He slowly opened the wooden cabinet. The old photograph remained exactly where he had left it. He stared at Amara's smiling face. I saw you today. His voice was barely above a whisper. You looked happy. And somehow, that makes me happy too. He paused, then looked toward the little boy in his memory. But I need to know the truth. No matter what it is. He carefully placed the photograph back into the cabinet, then turned toward the window overlooking Seoul. For the first time in 2 years, he no longer felt hopeless. Because somewhere in this enormous city, Amara was alive, and fate had finally brought her back into his life. He didn't know when they would meet again. He didn't know how she would react. He didn't know who the little boy truly was. But one thing had become certain. He would keep searching until he found the answers. The little boy's cheerful wave stayed in Kang Min-jae's mind long after he lowered his hand. He couldn't explain it. There was something about the child. The smile, the eyes, even the way he tilted his head. Everything felt strangely familiar. Min-jae remained inside the SUV, watching from a distance. Amara gently held the little boy's hand as they walked toward their car. Just before opening the door, she stopped, almost as if she could feel someone watching her. Slowly, she turned around. Her eyes met Min Jae's. Neither of them moved. The noisy playground suddenly felt silent. 2 years of memories, 2 years of pain, 2 years of unanswered questions passed between them without a single word. Amara quickly looked away. She helped the little boy into the car before driving away. Min Jae watched until the car disappeared from sight. Then he quietly said, "Follow them." Lee Hyun nodded, "But keep a safe distance. I don't want to frighten her." To Min Jae's surprise, Amara stopped at a peaceful cafe overlooking the Han River. She walked inside alone. The little boy remained with a trusted daycare teacher nearby while she took a short break. Min Jae waited for several moments before entering. The cafe was calm. Bright sunlight reflected beautifully across the river outside. Soft music played in the background. Amara sat beside the window without looking up. She already knew he was there. "You still drink black coffee?" Her voice was calm. Min Jae stopped walking. A faint smile appeared on his face. "You still remember?" She finally looked at him. "I remember more than I should." He slowly sat across from her. For several moments, neither of them touched the coffee placed on the table. Finally, Min Jae spoke. "How have you been?" Amara smiled sadly. "I survived." Those 2 words hit him harder than he expected. "I searched everywhere for you." "I know." His eyes widened. "You knew?" "I changed my address, my phone number, my workplace. I didn't want to be found." Min Jae lowered his head. "So, you hated me that much?" Amara gently shook her head. "No. I was protecting my heart." Silence filled the table again. Min Jae finally gathered the courage to ask the question that had haunted him ever since seeing her. "The little boy." She looked directly into his eyes. "What about him? Who is his father?" Amara's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. Instead of answering, it quietly stood. "I should go." "Amara, please." She looked at him with tears beginning to form. "When I needed you, you chose work. When I begged you to listen, you chose silence. When my world was falling apart, I faced everything alone." Min Jae couldn't even defend himself. Every word hurt, because he knew she believed it. She picked up her handbag. "Some answers," she whispered softly. "Change lives forever." Then she walked away. Min Jae remained seated, watching the woman he still loved disappear through the cafe door. For the first time since becoming chairman, Min Jae couldn't concentrate. The board meeting continued around him. Executives discussed profits. Investors celebrated new agreements. Charts filled the large screen. But Min Jae heard none of it. His thoughts remained inside that cafe. "When my world was falling apart, I faced everything alone." Those words echoed inside his mind. Finally, he stood. "The meeting is over." Everyone looked surprised. "But Chairman," I said, "the meeting is over." Without waiting for another response, he walked out. A gentle knock came from the door. "Chairman." Lee Hyun entered, carrying a thick investigation file. "I found something." Min Jae immediately stood. "What is it?" "We located medical records." His heart skipped. "They show that Miss Amara visited a maternity clinic shortly after your breakup." The room fell silent. Min Jae stared at him, unable to speak. Lee Hyun continued quietly. "The dates match. It appears she was pregnant." Min Jae slowly sat down. His face turned pale. "No," he whispered. "No." His hands began shaking. She was carrying my child. We can't confirm that yet. But everything points in that direction." A tear rolled down Min Jae's face. "I never knew." His voice cracked. "If I had known, I would have canceled every meeting. I would have left every company. I would have gone with her. I would have protected them." His shoulders trembled. "I failed them." The school day came to an end. Children happily ran toward their parents. The little boy spotted Amara immediately. "Mommy!" He raced into her arms. She laughed warmly. "My handsome boy. Did you have fun today?" "I did. I drew dinosaurs. I want to show you." As they began walking toward their car, a familiar voice called out. "Amara." She stopped. Slowly, she turned around. Min Jae stood a few steps away. His eyes were red, as though he had spent hours holding back tears. The little boy looked at him curiously, then smiled. "Hello, mister." Min Jae smiled back. "Hello." The child stepped closer. "My name is Ethan. What is your name?" "My name is Min Jae." Ethan studied him for a moment, then asked innocently, "Why do you look so sad?" Min-jae smiled weakly. "Maybe I've been missing someone important." Ethan nodded seriously. "My mommy says when people are sad, they need a hug." Before either adult could react, the little boy wrapped his tiny arms around Min-jae. Everything around him seemed to stop. Min-jae slowly hugged him back. Warm tears filled his eyes. He didn't understand why, but holding Ethan felt unbelievably natural. Amara stood silently watching them. Deep inside, she realized the truth she had hidden for 2 years could not remain hidden much longer. The little boy's tiny arms remained wrapped around Kang Min-jae for several moments. Min-jae could barely breathe. His eyes slowly filled with tears. He had spent 2 years believing he had lost the love of his life forever. Now, was a child whose warm embrace made him feel something he had never experienced before. Ethan slowly stepped back and smiled. "My mommy says hugs make people feel better." Min-jae smiled through his tears. "Your mommy is right." Ethan giggled happily. "I know." Amara quietly walked toward them. "Ethan, it's time to go home." The little boy nodded. "Okay, mommy." Before climbing into the car, he turned back toward Min-jae. "Bye, Mr. Min-jae. I hope I see you again." Min-jae smiled warmly. "I hope so too." As Ethan climbed into the car, Amara remained standing beside the door. She looked at Min-jae for a long moment. "What do you want?" Her voice was calm, but her eyes revealed years of hidden pain. Min-jae took a slow breath. "I only want the truth." Amara lowered her eyes. "There are some truths that change people's lives forever. I'm ready." "No, you only think you are." "I am." She stared at him silently before speaking again. "Walk with me." The bright afternoon sun shone across the peaceful riverside park. Families laughed together. Children played happily on the grass. A gentle breeze moved through the trees. Ethan was nearby, happily chasing pigeons and laughing as they flew into the air. Min-jae and Amara slowly walked along the path. Neither of them spoke at first. Finally, Min-jae broke the silence. "I found out you went to a maternity clinic after we separated." Amara stopped walking. She closed her eyes. "So, you investigated me." "I wasn't trying to invade your privacy. I was trying to understand." "You disappeared without letting me explain anything." She looked toward Ethan. "I didn't disappear because I hated you. I disappeared because I was scared." Min-jae's voice became softer. "Scared of me?" "No. Scared of being rejected." He frowned. "I would never reject you." "You don't know that." "I do." "You don't." For a long moment, neither of them moved. Finally, Amara turned to face him. "There is something I've wanted to tell you for 2 years." Min-jae held his breath. "When we broke up, I was already pregnant." His entire body froze. He stared at her in complete disbelief. "What?" She nodded slowly. "I found out a few days after I left." Min-jae's lips trembled. "No. I wanted to tell you. I really did. I even came to your company." His eyes widened. "You came." "I waited outside for hours. I kept hoping you would come out. But you never did. I watched you leave with investors. You looked busy. You looked happy. So I convinced myself there was no place for me in your life anymore." Min-jae shook his head over and over. "No. No, Amara. If I had seen you, I would have run to you. I would have listened. I would have stayed. I swear." Tears rolled freely down his face. "I never knew. I never knew you were carrying our baby." Amara wiped away a tear. "I know." Ethan suddenly came running toward them with a huge smile. "Mommy, look! I found a beautiful feather." Amara smiled warmly. "It's beautiful." The little boy looked at Min-jae. "Mr. Min-jae, do you like birds?" Min-jae smiled. "I do. My daddy would probably like birds too." The sentence hit Min-jae like lightning. He slowly knelt in front of Ethan. "You've never met your daddy?" Ethan shook his head. "No. Mommy says he's a good man. He just doesn't know where we are." Min-jae looked up at Amara. Neither of them spoke. Everything became clear. The tears in Amara's eyes, the pain she had carried, the questions that had haunted him. All of it pointed to the same truth. He slowly stood. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Amara, is Ethan my son?" Amara looked at Ethan, then back at Min-jae. A gentle smile appeared through her tears. "Yes, he's your son." Min-jae stood completely still. His heart pounded so loudly he could barely hear anything else. He looked at Ethan again. The little boy was happily chasing butterflies across the grass. completely unaware that his life had just changed forever. A tear rolled down Min Jae's cheek, then another, and another. "I have a son." His voice broke. "I have a son." He covered his face with both hands. I missed his first smile, his first words, his first steps. I wasn't there. Amara gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "You didn't choose to miss them. You simply didn't know." Min Jae looked at her with deep regret. "I can't change the past, but please, let me be part of his future." Amara looked toward Ethan. The little boy was laughing under the bright afternoon sun. She smiled softly. "I won't stop you. If Ethan accepts you, so will I." At that very moment, Ethan came running back. Without hesitation, he reached out and took both of their hands. One hand held his mother's, the other held Min Jae's. He smiled innocently. "Come on, let's walk together." Neither adult had the heart to let go. As they walked side by side beneath the warm daylight, Min Jae silently made himself a promise. "No matter what happens from today, I will never let my family walk alone again." Ethan happily skipped ahead, still holding both Min Jae's and Amara's hands. The bright afternoon sun painted everything in warm golden light. Families laughed together. Children played on the green lawns. For the first time in 2 years, Amara smiled without forcing it. Min Jae looked down at Ethan. "So, what would you like to do today?" Ethan's eyes sparkled. "Can we eat ice cream?" Min Jae laughed. "Of course. And then? I want to see the big aquarium. And after that, I want to ride on the riverboat." Min Jae smiled warmly. "Then that's exactly what we'll do." Ethan cheered excitedly. "Yay!" Amara couldn't help laughing. "You've already spoiled him." Min Jae looked at her with a gentle smile. "I've missed 2 years. I have a lot of catching up to do." Ethan ran from one glass tank to another. "Wow, look at the sharks, and the turtles, and those tiny colorful fish." Min Jae followed him everywhere. Whenever Ethan asked a question, he answered patiently. Whenever Ethan became excited, he celebrated with him. Whenever Ethan laughed, Min Jae smiled even wider. Amara quietly watched from behind. Tears slowly gathered in her eyes. For the first time, she wasn't imagining what kind of father Min Jae would have been. She was watching him become one. Later, the three of them sat together eating ice cream. Ethan suddenly looked at Min Jae. "Mr. Min Jae?" "Yes. Can I ask you something?" "Of course. You make mommy smile." Min Jae looked at Amara. She immediately looked away, blushing slightly. Ethan continued innocently. "I haven't seen her smile this much in a long time." Silence filled the table. Then Amara smiled. "I think it's because today feels different." Min Jae nodded. "It does. It feels like something beautiful is beginning." Several days later, the massive mansion was no longer silent. Tiny footsteps echoed through the hallways. Laughter replaced loneliness. Ethan ran excitedly from room to room. "Wow, this house is huge. Mommy, there's even a movie room, and a game room, and a giant garden." Min Jae laughed. "I told you there was plenty to explore." Ethan suddenly stopped. He looked at Min Jae. "Can I call you something?" Min Jae knelt beside him. "What would you like to call me?" The little boy smiled shyly. "I don't want to call you Mr. Min Jae anymore." Min Jae felt his heart race. "What would you like to call me?" Ethan hesitated, then quietly asked, "Can I call you Dad?" Time seemed to stop. Min Jae couldn't speak. His eyes instantly filled with tears. He gently pulled Ethan into a hug. His voice trembled. "I've dreamed of hearing that. For longer than you'll ever know. Yes, you can call me Dad." Ethan hugged him tightly. "Dad, I finally have a dad." Min Jae closed his eyes. "I finally have my son." Amara wiped away her tears as she watched them embrace. Everything she had prayed for, everything she thought she had lost, was finally becoming real. Weeks passed. The family grew closer every single day. Min Jae took Ethan to school. They played soccer together in the garden. They built toy airplanes, read bedtime stories, painted dinosaurs. Every moment they shared healed another piece of the past. One afternoon, Min Jae stood with Amara beneath the cherry blossom trees in the mansion garden, the same flowers that had witnessed the beginning of their love years earlier. He reached into his pocket, then slowly knelt on one knee. Amara covered her mouth in surprise. He held out a small velvet box. Inside was a beautiful diamond ring. His eyes never left hers. 2 years ago, I let the most important person in my life walk away. I can never erase that mistake, but if you'll give me one more chance, I promise, I'll spend the rest of my life proving that I deserve you." He opened the ring box completely. "Amara, will you marry me?" Tears streamed down her face. She laughed softly through her tears. "You always did know how to make me cry." Min-jae smiled nervously. "So, is that a yes?" She nodded again and again. "Yes. Yes. 1,000 times yes." Min-jae carefully placed the ring on her finger. The moment he stood, Amara threw her arms around him. They embraced beneath the warm daylight as cherry blossom petals drifted gently around them. Ethan jumped excitedly. "Mommy! Dad! Does this mean we're a real family now?" Both of them smiled at him. Min-jae opened his arms. "Come here, buddy." Ethan ran straight into the hug. The three of them held each other tightly. None of them wanted to let go. Months later, friends, family, and business partners gathered for a beautiful daytime wedding in the mansion garden. The ceremony was filled with laughter, happy tears, and heartfelt promises. When it was time for Ethan to walk down the aisle, he proudly carried the wedding rings with the biggest smile on his face. Everyone applauded as the little boy declared, "My mommy and my dad are together forever." The guests laughed warmly. Min-jae looked at Amara and gently squeezed her hand. "I searched the world for happiness, and all along, it was waiting for me in the two people standing beside me." Amara smiled through joyful tears. "We lost 2 years, but we'll spend the rest of our lives making up for them." As the family stood together beneath the bright blue sky, surrounded by love, laughter, and hope, Min-jae realized that true wealth had never been measured by the billions in his bank account. His greatest treasure was his family, and this time, he would never let them go again.